to Dragons on the Wall, our weekly Game of Thrones show where we're going to be discussing the final season episode by episode, starting with this preseason look ahead. I'm Terry Schwartz, and going into this season, I'm feeling like Daenerys Targaryen, ready to Dracarys all over my expectations for the end of Game of Thrones.
I'm Laura Prudhomme, and like Arya Stark, I'm feeling Vala Morghulis is the theme for this season because all men must die.
And I'm Joshua Yale, and I'm feeling like Jon Snow because I know nothing about what's going to happen. It's driving me crazy.
Well, we also have a special fourth chair today, the Night King. We are joined by our resident White Walker, who is feeling very chill about the odds for the Battle of Winterfell that we have heard is coming this season. Come on. You
None
gotta,
for you. No.
You gotta give me some snaps or something.
Nope.
Anyway, if you're not familiar with Dragons on the Wall, we have been doing this for seasons on IGN, where we break down every week's episode of Game of Thrones, and we are going to continue to do that throughout the final season. So you'll definitely want to be tuning back in after every episode in season 8. We have no idea what to expect, and I kind of am enjoying it that way, but that is why we're having this preview episode where we are going to give our final predictions. This is the last time we will be the Unsullied of season 8. Going forward, we're going to know at least what happens in the premiere episode. Are you guys excited?
So excited, so stoked.
Excited/terrified.
Absolutely terrified. So it's been a while since Game of Thrones has been on the air. I don't know if you guys went back and rewatched season 7, but I did recently. And obviously the big cliffhanger, the big unanswered question at the end of the season is how the heck Jon and Dany are going to deal with the Aunt-Cest reveal that we know is inevitably coming. Jon Snow, real Targaryen, real name Aegon Targaryen. Spoilers if you haven't watched it, but what are you doing here if you haven't? What do you think is going to be the fallout of this reveal?
It's interesting because I feel like for Jon, he doesn't care about being king, so that will be fine. He'll be more bothered by the Aunt-Cest because he's been judging the Lannisters and everyone else.
It's icky, yeah.
It's icky. It's icky whichever way you slice it. But I feel like Daenerys, it's more the threat to the throne. And for Jon, it's like, ew, this is just gross. So it will be interesting to see if they can kind of come together on that, or if it'll just be like Jon's too grossed out and Daenerys is too threatened that they can never be intimate again. Hopefully. I don't want it.
You don't like it. You don't
Stop
take it.
having sex. It's gross. Stop it.
That's why the episodes are so long, because to make room for their continual sex scenes every single episode.
I don't know. I was kind of into it. But Joshua, what do you think?
I feel like we know as the audience, and like Bran knows, right? But once the characters find out, it's going to be a big bombshell. I think that would be a good episode 1 like cliffhanger, and then we explore the consequences of that. And I think the consequences, once people kind of get over it, they're going to realize that, one, this is a power couple of two very strong houses coming together. That's very scary for a lot of characters. Yes. Very good for some other characters, but ultimately, I think they're going to have a baby, right?
Yes.
And then Dany was, we know her family has problems with childbirth, so who knows if she'll even survive. So I think the fact that they would produce an heir that could take the throne, that will be the thing. That will be the big effect that possibly causes some more conspiracies and such for this final season.
It is interesting. I like the baby theory because there kind of have been these discussions when we're talking about who should end up on the Iron Throne. And don't worry, we will talk about who should end up on the Iron Throne. But like a lot of people are kind of saying, is there anyone who's the best contender for it? Like, is there that one person? So I like the idea that there could be a child born out of everything crazy that's happened, a new summer child coming out of the winter. That could be a dream of spring. Hey, like what the final George R. R. Martin book will be called if it ever gets released. I actually am kind of different from you, Laura. I think that ultimately Dany will be cool with it. Like, I think that, she was raised to think that Targaryens should wed. I don't think that will be strange to her. And also the idea of them being a power couple and not being one or the other could potentially be good, though we do know that there, tend to be a king or queen on the throne, not both. And I think Jon being kind of more of a passive support character would be okay with just
I think he's fine stepping back and letting her rule if she wants to.
Right. I think the more interesting thing that will be the fallout of it that I haven't seen discussed as much is going to be how the Stark siblings respond to this. We seem to know that, everyone's going to be coming together probably early on in the season as Jon and Dany head back to Winterfell, and obviously Arya, Sansa, Bran are all there. And, Bran knows already, but I'm really interested to see how Sansa and Arya take it, especially since Sansa's been acting pretty efficiently as the Lady of Winterfell for a while now.
I know this is the song of ice and fire, right? So we've all been kind of deciding like what that means. Like, is that Jon that we're talking about, or is that Jon and Dany coming together? And like, is this the story? Is it their like love story over all these books, seasons of television, or is it something else? Like, I don't know. So I feel like in exploring that, we'll finally get the answer to that, which is very exciting.
I've been reading a lot of fan theories recently where a few people have posited that ice and fire in this context is less about characters and more about the White Walkers versus the dragons themselves, and whether it could just be wiping out the whole of Westeros. Like, if it's a song of ice and fire, is that just the cleansing? It'll be like mutually assured destruction in a way. So I kind of like that idea.
Kind of a nihilistic point of view there.
That's
Just
me.
everyone's dead.
Well, it's Game of Thrones, which actually is a perfect segue to our second topic of this preview discussion, which is, who will end up on the Iron Throne ultimately. We kind of teased that a little bit. I liked the idea of maybe a child in the future, but really, like, this is the Game of Thrones. You win or you die. We have certain characters left living. Who do you think of any of them will be the one to finally be the last person we see sitting on the throne?
I'll go first on this one. I believe that Tyrion Lannister will wind up on the throne.
Why?
He's kind of someone who doesn't really want power, but we know he's the smartest character on the show. Occasionally his lust gets the better of him, but I think he's been humbled now. And of course, but I think that he definitely is the one who will take the throne. Also, I've done a lot of real world historical research, and a lot of people know that Game of Thrones is based on like the Tudor dynasty and like the War of the Roses, and his equivalent in history kind of like won out and ended up on the throne. So history's backing me up on this one.
I like the Tyrion theory, but what do you think, Lauren?
I would love Tyrion because he is kind of the most sane character who, hasn't spilled too much blood. I think it's going to be Dany, but I don't know if she'll stay there. I kind of jumping off the nihilistic, the whole world will end kind of theory. I think that we're probably going to revisit her vision from, what was it, season 2?
Yes, season 2 when she goes into the House of the Undying.
Right.
Yeah.
So you kind of see the Red Keep decimated. You see Snow on the throne, which people have interpreted as Jon being on the throne. But I think, we'll kind of get to that point, and then maybe the White Walkers come and mess it all up. Maybe she goes mad queen with power and kind of is her own destruction. I think that's probably where we're headed. It would be sad.
So you think she's going to be the last person to sit on the Iron Throne, but then it won't be around much longer?
Yeah.
Woo!
I know. I'm dark.
I have a theory to back that up, but first I'm going to do a wish fulfillment theory, which is the person I would most love to see end up on the Iron Throne, despite being a Jon girl fangirl kind of from the beginning, would be Sansa Stark. I have been rewatching Game of Thrones, and the thing, like, Sansa is one of those characters who annoyed so many people for so long. They consistently compared her to the Aryas and the Daenerys, and obviously she's a much more passive character, but kind of having the trajectory of seeing where she went from the beginning as that more passive character and knowing where she ends up, like, on this rewatch, it's so interesting to see how much more cunning and smart than we gave her credit for. And I think she, more than anyone else really on the show, has learned and really been smart about the kind of direction she's gone, even for the mistakes I would agree that she made kind of in recent seasons. So I think and honestly, she hasn't done anything horrible to anyone either. She's only had horrible things done to her. So I think she is probably the most equipped to sit on the Iron Throne and be a just ruler. That being said, it's funny, I was having a conversation leading into the season where I was like, oh yeah, they'll probably do the showdown with the Night King kind of early on to subvert our expectations, and then maybe like it'll be like Breaking Bad, where the falling action is more dealing with the more personal, like, sad elements of like what happens now that Cersei has plans to betray Daenerys. And I was rightly asked, do you really think they're going to defeat the Night King? And rewatching that episode, with the House of the Undying vision, like, the thing that stood out to me that I hadn't noticed before is, yes, it's snowing in the Red Keep, which we know Snow has made it to King's Landing by the end of season 7, but it's that the whole Red Keep is destroyed. Oh, yeah. To your point of like, okay, this probably is going to be the final battleground between the living and the dead. They probably won't survive that first showdown that we believe is coming at Winterfell and heard a lot about. And if that's the case, like, yeah, in true Game of Thrones fashion, I could definitely see the big question of the show, who ends up on the Iron Throne, never being answered.
Yep.
Ooh, and so Cersei would be the last ruler.
Yeah. And she'd be the one who's like, I'm Queen of the Ashes, I want it to all burn down anyway. So it makes sense for her to be like, I'm just gonna, if I can't have it, no one can.
Yeah.
She could literally do that because maybe the throne room is in that state because she like burnt it. She'd rather burn it down than let because I'm sure, here's theory time. You ready?
Yes.
So I think that at Winterfell they'll meet the Night King in battle and they'll lose. Like it'll be a crazy episode and there'll be some big deaths, but they'll retreat down to King's Landing and then so the end of the show will eventually come down to asking Cersei for help and will she say yes? Will she let them in? There'll eventually be a battle in King's Landing, and I think that's where that prophecy will be, or that vision will come true. Is that winter will come to King's Landing, and there'll be snow everywhere, and they'll be making snowmans and stuff, and then that's it, and then it ends on a happy Christmas ending. Christmas comes to Winterfell. Santa, he's the one who's been coming this whole time.
Santa Ice Dragon will deliver presents to all the good boys and girls in Westeros. No, I love that, but that actually is a segue to our third big topic, and I think ultimately the most inevitable of all of these for all our predictions, which is this is definitely not a show where all our main characters are going to come out living. I think chances are the majority of these people are going to end up dying in some tragic and hopefully heroic and not horrible fashion. But,
it'll be horrible. You know it'll
probably
be horrible when they kill, like, Arya or someone. It's just, I know.
So that... In keeping with that sadness that I'm thinking right now, we pulled out 9 main characters on the show, and our producer Nick made these amazing signs for us that say lives and dies, and we're gonna do kind of quick lightning round predictions of these characters, who you think will live and who you think will die before the end of the season. You ready? Everyone dies. All right, Laura, you're spoiling everyone. You're spoiling your picks. All right, first up, Daenerys Targaryen, lives or dies. Ooh, I'm
2
with
to
you.
1.
I'm with you, Joshua. I think there's no way.
I think she's gonna die in childbirth. I think it's gonna be a sad story. I think she will make an impact on Westeros that'll help the future, and so her legacy will live on. But I think
I mean, there is the precedent of so many important women dying in childbirth, like both of their parents, just Jon's parents. Danny? No, I guess Danny.
No, Danny's died in a horrible way when Robert sacked the Red Keep. Or Dragonstone, or whatever it was. Yes.
Either way, lots of dead moms.
Yes.
It's like a Disney movie in Game of Thrones. Just
dead moms. See, I think she dies because I think Game of Thrones subverts all genre tropes intentionally, and the idea of watching this heroine go from beginning to end of the story, as satisfying as that would be in traditional storytelling, I feel like Game of Thrones will rip the rug out from under us, and whether it's in childbirth or something else, I hope it's not the case, but I wouldn't be surprised if she actually didn't make it to the end of this season. Ooh, all right. Next up, Jon Snow. Also dies for me.
Oh.
Interesting. Why, Laura? Why?
Well, for the reason you said, Jon has been the kind of viewpoint character. He has had the traditional hero's journey. So I think that, to your point of subverting expectations, it would make sense for him to be the one to kind of go. But he has already died once.
So that actually, if you don't mind me jumping in for why I'm also dying, that is the reason why I think he's dying again. I think Jon was brought back by the Lord of Light for a reason, and that reason is to defeat the Night King. And I think once the Night King is defeated, both he and Beric, who's not on our list, sorry, Beric fanboys and girls out there, I think they're both just gonna be it, and that's gonna be like a fitting end, a satisfying end, but they have served their purpose. And especially if Daenerys dies, he'll have fewer reasons to live.
And now his watch has ended.
But Joshua.
No, well, I thought he would live because he's already died once, and they made a big deal about that. So for them to go through all that trouble to bring him back and then kill him again feels weird. But actually, when you put it like that, Terry, I think you might be onto something, that his purpose is to combat the Night King, right? And so he might take himself out, sacrifice himself to defeat the Night King and go out in a heroic way instead of getting stabbed in the back alley of the wall.
I know. Much better end. Okay, next up, Cersei Lannister.
Ooh. You think she's gonna live? You both do?
All right, Joshua,
she
you
needs
go
to
first.
go.
She does need to.
At the end of the series, that's when characters need to get what they deserve. And I know that doesn't always happen, but at Cersei, I think a lot of people want to see her go because she's kind of backed herself into a corner. She has refused to help fight the Night King, and now she's essentially like hiding out in what I think is going to be the last refuge against him. So everyone's going to come, and they might have to break down the door. And I don't think her having a right to the crown won't mean anything at that point, and that's when she'll make her fall.
See, I think that's why she lives. I
What?
think it's the most tragic, bittersweet, awful ending for Cersei. I think I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but I think Jaime is going to go, and I think she will be. I don't think she's going to have her baby because we know the
We've
prophecy.
seen that photo of her with the wine at the trailer.
Yeah,
She's drinking
but
again.
Also, I'll go back to Maggie the
Yes.
Frog saying you'll only have 3 children. We still don't know for sure that she's even pregnant for those people who are skeptics there. But I think nothing would be more horrible for Cersei than having fought for everything and being left with nothing and having to live with that.
Yeah, agreed.
Oh, that is pretty
It's the
bitter.
bittersweet ending that George R. R. Martin teased.
True Game of Thrones fashion. Okay, next up. Well, I guess, I'll jump ahead to Jaime because I gave away that I think he dies. What do you? Yeah.
Sorry, Jamie.
I think Jaime and Cersei are going down together.
Yeah.
And he might even be the one who does it.
Ooh, well, that is
That's
a
good.
book theory that is long popular.
I have read the books.
What a master you are. Tell us.
I would, if Cersei was to die, and I know I'm saying that I don't think she will, I hope Arya is the one to kill
Yeah.
her. I really.
She's on the list, goddammit.
on the list.
Throw her a bone. She hasn't killed many of the people she's wanted to kill on that list, and she's not going to kill the Hound now because he's
Well,
her buddy.
who knows?
I
He's
hope.
not on this list.
He's
but
not on
I
this
love
list.
the
I don't
Hound.
think she'd kill him. I think
Clicking ball.
Exactly. Okay, boy. All right, jumping back up the list, let's talk about Tyrion. Lives or dies?
Well, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think he's going to
Don't
wind
need
up
to
on the
say
Iron
Yes,
Throne.
you have
to.
And he's always managed to weasel his way into where he needs to be to put himself in a safe position. And I think it would be if anyone, I know a lot of people talk about Dany might be like the main character of Game of Thrones or Jon Snow. I think it's Tyrion, and I think this is his story, and it would be nice to see him survive it.
Especially if he ends up on the Iron Throne.
Yeah.
Do you believe the kind
In
of...
Life After Love.
And also the fan theory that he's a secret Targaryen.
I do not believe that. Although I do love
Seconded.
theories like that.
Oh,
do you like buy into that?
I don't buy into it, but I do like the idea of him being able to ride one of the dragons too. Now they're Now they're on 3, so they can't have the 3 necks of the dragon.
Wait, I just had a crazy thought.
Tell us.
We know that Bran can warg. What if he can warg into an ice dragon?
Oh my gosh.
We don't know for certain that he can't. Maybe that's why. Oh my god, I'm getting ahead of my
Yes.
predictions.
Yeah,
Okay. Coming up next, Sansa Stark.
Yeah.
I'm staying at Liv's.
Yeah.
I love her so much.
Her trajectory has been the best.
You can't
Goddamn
kill her
deserves
after
it.
everything she's been through.
No, she's suffered enough. Throw her a bone. Give her a nice man to marry. She doesn't need one now.
No, she
and I
doesn't.
don't like the weird fan theory about her marrying Jon. People need to stop.
Oh,
that.
I've not even-
stop that right now.
I've
There's
not.
going to be like a line to marry Jon Snow.
I think
The only
everyone.
eligible bachelor in Westeros. I don't know.
I think whether she ends up as the Lady of Winterfell or the Queen of Westeros, I definitely think like for her it would be one cruelness too many, which again, we've lived through
Game
the
of
Red
Thrones.
Wedding,
Yeah.
like we've lived through the Mountain and the Viper, that could happen, but I just think at this point like she's got to live.
And isn't she David and Dan's favorite, or at least one of them? I know
The showrunners?
One of the showrunners has said
Interesting.
that
Behind the
she's their
scenes
favorite.
intel over here.
Maybe she gets saved just for that. Okay,
Yep.
next up, her sister Arya Stark. Why do you think she
Oh,
lives?
why are you guys doing this to me?
I don't
Because
know.
we're mean.
Oh my
Mean
gosh.
show.
She's
It's
a
not us, it's the
character
show.
who has had an amazing arc, and I think she's gone on such a transformational journey that I think she deserves to live. And I think her skills put her in danger. Like we're saying, like she could kill Cersei. You have to go through the mountain, undead mountain, right, to get to Cersei. So
Until
it's
the
going to
Hound
be.
takes him out first.
Ooh, who knows?
Yes, still
Clegane
that
Bowl.
Clegane Bowl hype, living that truth.
But I definitely think that she has the skills to take those kills and survive. She's a survivor.
She is. She's just so beloved, and it would hurt me personally probably more than just about everyone else apart from
Yet.
Yeah. This isn't what I want to happen. It's what I think will happen. And what I think will happen is that they know how much we love Arya and how we're all like, she's like so many people's favorite character. I feel like they need someone to kind of set the stakes and be like, this is a brutal loss, like anything can happen in this final season, and I can't think of anyone I would be more devastated to lose than Arya. So.
Seconded. And I also think, so this is another theory I'm throwing out there, but we know the cat's paw dagger that she got from Littlefinger last season is Valyrian steel. I think she could be the one to kill the Night King. That being said, I don't think that she's going to make it out alive, because I think she, like Jon, has been on this incredibly dark journey that there's not a lot coming back from. And Maisie Williams, in an interview with Rolling Stone, had said that this season of Game of Thrones actually involves Arya getting more of her humanity. She said this in the context of her weirdly like not being able to cry while filming that season. And I think even knowing that, I do feel like it would just be a tragedy I wouldn't want to have happen, because I love Arya. She's always been one of my favorite characters, but something that feels very true to Game of Thrones.
I know.
Yeah.
I don't like it either, man.
What if she like dies, and then in the end, like a character who looks like just some random person turns around and pulls the face off, and she's alive?
Yes.
That actually-
That's much better.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then we could all
like-
be right
like-
in that case.
like,
So both.
Only 2 more to go. All right. Next up, Bran Stark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I don't think-
First time we've agreed? Oh no,
No,
we
we've
agreed
done
on
it-
it
yeah,
before.
yeah.
Well, we've agreed on a death now.
Yes.
Yes.
I think that Bran isn't Bran anymore. And I think he, kind of like Jon, will serve a purpose as the three-eyed raven. Who knows if he just kind of exists, goes back into north of the wall and attaches himself to a weirwood tree or whatever, and kind of lives on there in a not true life. But I could see him being someone who magics himself.
Yeah.
Like exhausts his magical powers or something like that.
Does the Last Jedi and disappears.
Yes.
Into the ether.
Yes, I could see that. Sounds like you guys are on a similar page.
Yeah, I feel like, well, we've kind of seen what happens when he kind of has a psychic battle with the Night King. I think he will push his limits and try and like hold him off, and maybe a key scene or something, and that will be the end of Bran.
Yeah. I like the idea of him walking into like some powerful thing, whether it's a dragon or, you know, a direwolf who can like
Turn the ice dragon on the Night
exactly.
King.
Ooh,
I
maybe
think
that's
that
what-
would be like he takes the Night King
yeah.
down, and then like he gets killed in the process.
Like he takes down his dragon and uses him against him to like buy people enough time to get away or something like that.
Oh, that could
Something
be.
very
He might not
heroic.
live
Yeah.
through that first showdown. Okay,
Yeah.
I like what we're cooking up. Yeah. Lastly, the Night King himself. Do we think he'll live or die? I think he's gotta die.
He's gotta die.
He's gotta
right?
die.
Yeah,
Well-
because we care more about all of the other characters. Like, once we get him out of the way, I think it does come down.
I think
to
there still will be a lot of tragedy, but I think he will die. Though I keep going back to that Ramsay line. If you think this story has a happy ending, you haven't been paying attention. But I still feel like it can have an unhappy ending, and the Night King can die.
Yes, both things.
Sorry,
Oh,
bud.
sorry, buddy. He's
Sorry.
like, he's right. He's like, I'm right here, guys.
Guys, come on.
I will say this, that kind of like what I said before, I don't feel like he's the main villain, right? It's
Yeah.
always been like the characters and their relationships.
Yeah.
So I feel like he'll get taken out before the last episode, and that the characters will then have to like, you know,
it out.
hatch it out.
Look at life after the Night King. And
Yes.
us.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those are the end of our predictions. But obviously, we want to know what you think. Do you disagree, agree with us? Are we too optimistic? Is everyone dying? Let us know in the comments. And obviously, we are going to be held accountable to these predictions by the time we get to the final episode of season 8. So that is our way of saying, please stay tuned every week. Come back and check out IGN's Dragons on the Walls for breakdowns of each episode. We will be posting them as soon as we can. So check those out. And then obviously, if you are in that final crunch before watching Game of Thrones season 8 and you need to catch up and you need a handy guide, don't worry, we got you covered. We broke down each season in just 5 minutes, which means you can catch up on all 7 seasons in only 35 minutes, and that's faster than a single episode of Game of Thrones. So we have links to all those. But throughout the season, we want you to know IGN will be your one-stop shop for all your Game of Thrones needs, with interviews, explainers, and of course, episode reviews written by the lovely Laura Prudhomme right here. So be sure to like and subscribe across all our platforms for all things Game of Thrones. We'll see you next week.